We wrestle not against flesh and blood. That line is the key. It unlocks the one thing almost no one understands about Satan in the Bible. Paul is telling you the devil has one way into the fight, and it is not the person, not the habit, not the temptation, not the circumstance, and not the thing you keep blaming. Those are where the battle shows up after the door is already open. And if you miss that door, you can spend your whole life fighting the wrong enemy under a different name. This is not demonology, ritual, or anything strange. It stays in Scripture and in something you can watch happen inside yourself. So the question is simple. If the devil was never out there, where is his way in? Paul opens the question in one letter, then answers it in another. Go back to the line. We wrestle not against flesh and blood. Most people hear that as poetry. It is not poetry. It is a location. He is taking the war off the streets and pointing somewhere far closer to home. And in another letter, he says the part almost everyone reads straight past. Bringing into captivity every thought. Every thought. That is the door. That is his one way in. The devil does not arrive in your circumstances. He arrives as a thought, a suggestion, an accusation, a flash of fear that slips in quietly and pretends it is yours. It comes before the outer battle ever shows up. The argument, the relapse, the spiral, those are downstream. The thought is upstream, and it walks straight through the gate because you never once stopped to ask where it came from. That is the whole secret of the title. He can only reach you one way, and the one way is the thought you did not question. And Paul does not leave the enemy unnamed. In yet another line, he calls it the carnal mind, and he says the carnal mind is enmity against God. Enmity is not a mild word. It means open hostility, a standing enemy. So the adversary is not a figure with horns and a pitchfork. The adversary is the lower mind itself, the reactive, grasping, frightened mind set against the higher one. There are two minds in you, and one of them has been at war with the other your whole life. That is who you are actually fighting, not a creature, a mind, your own lower mind, running with no one watching it. Teachers in this tradition, like Bill Donahue, have pointed at this for years. The real battlefield of Scripture was always the inner one. But you do not have to take anyone's word for it. You can watch it happen in yourself. So, if the way in is a thought, then what is actually coming through? Who is this devil if he was never a creature in the dark? You have been picturing the wrong thing entirely. A creature, horns, a face in the dark with a name. But watch how the Bible uses the word. There is a moment when Peter, one of Jesus' closest friends, says the wrong thing. He means well, and Jesus turns and says, "Get behind me, Satan." Peter, a friend, called Satan for one sentence of wrong thinking. You do not call your friend by the proper name of a creature in hell. Jesus was not seeing a monster behind Peter. He was naming what Peter had become for a moment, the opposing voice, the one standing in the way. That is how Scripture is using it here. Not as a personal name, but as a role. The accuser, the adversary, the voice that opposes. And the words behind it back this up. If you look, though they are not the point, so much as the confirmation. In the older tellings, the figure shows up with the word, the in front of it, the Satan. Not a name you would call across a room, but a position, the way you would say the prosecutor or the opponent. The word the New Testament reaches for, the one we hand to the page as devil, simply means a slanderer, one who throws accusations. And when Peter writes of your adversary, the word underneath is the word for the opponent who stands against you in a court of law. None of it describes a being. All of it describes a job, the accuser, the one building the case against you. And a role is not bolted to one creature in one place. It can be played anywhere, including in you. The accuser does not have to break into your life. It only needs a voice, and it already has one. So, whose voice is it? You already know this voice. You have heard it your whole life. It speaks the second you are alone. It replays the thing you said years ago and makes you wince all over again. It hands you the sudden certainty that none of it matters, that you will not change, that everyone can already see what is wrong with you. Sometimes it is not even words, just a drop of dread with no reason attached. The Bible gives that voice 3 names, and every one of them fits. It calls him the accuser, not of strangers, but of you, reading your failures back to you when no one is in the room to argue. It calls him the father of lies. Not lies about the world, but the lies you believe about yourself. The story that has played so long you stopped checking whether it was ever true. And it calls him a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. You have felt that, the fear that comes from nowhere and roars, and suddenly you cannot think. You just want to run, or fight, or hide. And notice how it actually works on you. First, it accuses. Then, if you believe the accusation, it stops sounding like an attack and starts sounding like a simple fact. This is just who I am. This is just how I am. That is the lie doing its quiet work, turning a passing thought into a permanent identity. The accuser does not need you to lose the argument. It needs you to stop arguing and start agreeing. Now, here is the disguise that keeps the whole thing working. The voice never says you. It says I. I always ruin this. I am not enough. I should just give up. It speaks in your own voice, in the first person, so you assume it is simply you thinking. It is not. It is the accuser wearing your voice. And the moment you cannot tell the difference between the accuser and yourself, it has already won. That voice is not a creature stalking you from outside. It is the adversary running inside your own head. Before we go any further, some of you are going to want to sit with this far longer than one video allows. So, there is a companion decoded map for this one. It walks the whole verse trail decoded in order, from not against flesh and blood onward. It shows the science of where this actually happens inside you, and it lays out the practice to take it further, all in one place to keep and return to. It comes with the cartographer, so if you want it, tap join right under this video or follow the link in the description. So why have you spent your whole life fighting everything except that voice? Because the accuser's first move is not to attack you. It is to point, to get your eyes anywhere but the one place it is actually working. So, you fight what is in front of you. You change your surroundings, swap one fix for another, swear this time is different. And it goes quiet for a while. Then it returns because you were swinging at shadows while the real door stood wide open behind you. And looking outward feels good, which is exactly why it lasts. It feels like progress. If the trouble is out there, then you are fine, and the world just needs to change. It is the most comfortable lie there is, and the accuser is glad to let you believe it forever. The Bible names the trick exactly. It says the adversary has blinded the minds, and it calls him the God of this world, not the God of hell, the God of ordinary, unexamined, everyday life. The thoughts you never stop to question are the world he rules, run on autopilot, and you are living in his kingdom without ever choosing it. And Paul tells you where this began. He warns that just as the serpent deceived Eve, he is afraid the same thing will be done to them, and he names exactly what is at risk. Not their bodies, their minds. He says he fears their minds will be corrupted. Sit with that. The very first deception in the Bible did its work in the same place every deception since has worked. In the mind, the serpent never had to touch anything. It only had to offer a thought and let her water it herself. That is the misdirection. Keep you staring outward and you never inspect the entrance. But if the way in is a thought in your own head, one thing still has to be explained. Why does it feel so automatic? Like it fires before you can stop it, like it is older than you. The body gives us a receipt for the pattern Scripture describes. Deep in your head there is something like an alarm. Its job is survival. It scans for threat, and when it senses danger, it fires. Fear, the urge to fight, the urge to run, all of it before the calm, reasoning part of you has even caught up. It is old, and it is fast. That old serpent, coiled at the root, and it is fast in a way that matters. By the time the thinking part of you arrives, your heart is already pounding, your breath is already short, the room has already narrowed, and the voice is already talking, and it sounds like the truth, because your whole body is agreeing with it. Here is what lines up with the verses. When that alarm roars, the higher part of you goes quiet, the calm part, the part that can step back and choose, the part right behind your forehead. It dims, and the roar takes over. Think about what that higher part does when it is awake. It is the part that can hold a thought at arm's length and look at it, instead of being swept away by it. It is the part that can say, that is only a thought, and not flinch. When it is lit, you are in the driver's seat. When the alarm drowns it out, you are a passenger, and the oldest, most frightened part of you has the wheel. That is the whole fight in one picture. A roaring, ancient alarm at the base, a steady light up behind the forehead, and the question of which one is running you in any given moment. That is the roaring lion. That is the accuser firing before reason can answer. The old war in the heavens was never a battle in the sky. The high place is the head, and the war is the higher mind against the lower, reactive one. But hear this clearly. This is not proof that a brain part is a demon. The body is not the proof. The verses and your own experience are. It is a symbolic correspondence you can observe in yourself. A primal, automatic accuser that drowns out the higher mind, echoing the pattern Scripture described. So, if it fires faster than you can think, how do you ever take the door back? The same way Paul already told you, bringing into captivity every thought. For years, that sounds like a nice idea. It is not. It is the exact move, and you can do it tonight. 3 steps. First, catch it. Just notice the thought is there. A thought you are watching is no longer a thought you are drowning in. Second, name it. Out loud or in the quiet, say it plainly. That is the accuser. That is not me. Give it back its real name instead of letting it borrow yours. Third, watch it instead of obeying it. Do not argue with it. Do not try to win the debate. Just stop being the one having the argument and let it pass like weather while the steady part of you holds the line. Picture it tonight. The thought arrives. You always ruin this. The old way, you obey it, and the whole evening tilts. The new way, you catch it, you name it. That is the accuser, not me, and you watch it sit there, with you no longer underneath it. It has nowhere to go, because the one thing it needed, for you to mistake it for yourself, you just took away. Researchers sometimes call this affect labeling, putting an inner state into words. The point here is simple. Naming the thing creates distance from it, and here is where the receipt and the practice become the same picture. That steady part right behind your forehead, the part the roar shuts off, is the same part that switches back on the instant you put the feeling into words. Naming the thought is what lights it, so when you catch the accuser and call it by its name, you are not only calming down, you are turning the light back on in the exact place the alarm tried to darken. The higher mind comes back online, and the roar, with nothing left to feed it, begins to fade. That is what bringing a thought into captivity looks like from the inside. Not a fight, a light coming back on. And do not let it turn this into one more thing you are failing at. You will not catch every thought, and you do not have to. Catch one. Break the spell once. It is not a perfect record. It is a new reflex, built one caught thought at a time. And do not miss how Paul ends the line. Bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. The higher mind, the Christ in you, the part that can watch instead of react. That is what wins. This was never about gritting through it on your own willpower. It is about which voice you hand the throne to. That is the one door and the one move. And now you know where the war is fought. But there is one more picture you are still carrying, and it has the same flaw as the one we just took apart. You have been told the devil lives somewhere. Down there, in the fire, in hell. And if he was never out there in the world, you should already be suspicious about whether he is down there either. The same trick that put him outside, you also put him underground, far away, somewhere safe to point at, somewhere you would never actually have to look. So the real question is the one almost no one dares to ask. If the devil was never out there, and never the creature you pictured, then where is he? And why were you taught he was in a place you would never have to face? That is exactly where we go next.